I didn't notice the man in the dark coat until he was standing so close I could feel his breath. The platform smelled of cold iron and sea salt, the stone floor slick from a steady drizzle. The last train of the night roared into the station with a low animal growl. I turned and saw my fiancé, the one who had died 2 years ago. For a moment, the world went silent. No wind, no clatter of wheels, no voices, just his face, pale and sharp as I remembered, framed by ash-blonde hair, the faint scar above his right eyebrow. He didn't look like a ghost. He looked like a man who'd been waiting for me. Before I could speak, he stepped onto the train without a glance back. The automatic doors began to close. Without thinking, I lunged forward and slipped inside just before the rubber edges sealed with a hiss. The inside smelled faintly of damp wool and cold metal. Only a few overhead lamps worked, flickering in time with the train's motion. The seats were mostly empty. A woman in a thick scarf sat sleeping near the far end, her face hidden. I walked the aisle, my heartbeat thudding in my ears. At the far door, I thought I saw the tail of his coat vanish through it. I followed. The connecting passage rattled and swayed. The next carriage was darker, a single light swinging from a loose fixture. At the far end stood a man in a faded conductor's uniform. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice heavy with fatigue. "I'm looking for someone," I began. He shook his head. "No one's passed through here tonight. Go back to your seat." I returned, fighting the panic rising like cold water. Outside, the city lights gave way to black hills and fjords, their shapes barely visible under the clouded moon. I reached into my bag for my phone and froze. It wasn't my phone. It was his. The same cracked screen, the dent in the corner, the one leather case we'd buried with him. My fingers shook as I lit up the screen. One unread message from an unknown number. "Don't get off at your stop." My stop was 20 minutes away, a small wooden house I'd been renting at the edge of the forest. The phone buzzed again. "Trust me." I glanced toward the far end of the carriage. The sleeping woman was gone. The train slowed suddenly, brakes grinding. Outside was only rain and pine forest, black and endless. The far door slid open. A man stepped inside. His coat was dripping, his hair plastered to his face. In his right hand, a long hunting knife gleamed under the dim lights. He didn't run. He just looked at me and smiled. I shot to my feet, the floor slick beneath me, and bolted down the aisle. I tore through the next door and into a dim storage carriage. Crates, bicycles, and sacks were stacked haphazardly, shadows moving with the sway of the train. And there, crouched in the far corner, was him. Alive, real, breathing. "Elena," he said, voice low and urgent, "you have to listen to me." I froze, gripping the cold metal frame. "You're dead," I whispered. "I had to be," he said. "They're after me. And now, after you." He pulled a small steel case from inside his coat. Rain beaded and slid down its sides. "Everything is in here. Names, dates, proof." The sound of boots echoed from the previous carriage. He gripped my shoulders. "We have to jump." "We're moving too fast." "No time. If they catch us, it's over." The footsteps stopped outside the door. A shadow filled the narrow window. The door burst open, revealing the man with the knife. My fiancé wrenched the side door wide, the freezing wind and rain exploded into the compartment. "Now!" he shouted. I felt his hand pull mine, then the violent, weightless drop. The night swallowed us whole. The current was ice, dragging me under. My lungs burned until I broke the surface, choking. He was there, hauling me toward the shore beneath a low bridge. Above, headlights scanned the water. He won't stop. Not until... A gunshot split the night. He went limp, the steel case slipping from his grasp. I dove after it, the cold pressing in on all sides. My fingers touched the slick metal, then another gunshot cracked through the rain. And then, nothing. The cold pulled me back from nothingness. Rain hammered the river like an endless drum, and the taste of salt and iron filled my mouth. I coughed hard, my arms flailing until my fingers found something solid, a half-submerged log wedged between rocks. The headlights above were gone. So was the sound of the train. But the steel case, it was still in my hands. I dragged myself onto the bank, shivering, my breath visible in short, sharp bursts. My fiancé, Viktor, lay a few feet away, pale against the wet stones. His eyes were closed, blood mixing with the rain on his temple. "Viktor!" My voice cracked. I shook him once, then harder. His chest rose barely. Alive. I looked up at the dark forest stretching beyond the riverbank. The pines moved in the wind, whispering in a language older than the town. Somewhere behind them, a twig snapped. The sound was deliberate, slow. I crouched low, heart hammering. A figure stepped out from the tree line, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a hooded rain jacket. Not the man from the train. Someone else. And in his gloved hands, a rifle. I grabbed Viktor under the arms and dragged him toward the deeper shadows by the river's curve. My feet slipped on the wet moss, every muscle screaming. The first shot tore through the air, splintering the trunk inches from my head. Bark stung my cheek. I didn't think, I just ran. The forest swallowed us whole, branches clawing at my coat. My breath came in ragged gasps, each one clouding in the cold. Viktor stirred once, murmuring something I couldn't catch. The steel case dug into my side under my jacket, heavy with whatever secrets it held. Another shot echoed behind us. Closer. We stumbled onto a narrow hunting trail, lit faintly by the dying moonlight through thick clouds. Through the trees, a light. Not warm or yellow. Pale and flickering, like from an old fluorescent bulb. A small cabin stood there, its wood blackened with age, one side leaning as if the forest had been pushing it for years. I half-carried Viktor up the short steps and forced the door open. The smell inside was damp paper and rust. Someone was already there. An old woman sat at a table, her hair silver and thin, her hands folded neatly in front of her. She didn't flinch when I burst in, dripping water and blood. "I know who you are," she said, her voice brittle like dry leaves. I froze. Her eyes slid to Viktor. "And I know what you carry." Her gaze fell on my jacket, on the steel case. "You can't keep it," she whispered. "They'll follow you until you're nothing but a story no one believes." I tightened my grip on the case. "What's in it?" She shook her head. "Not mine to tell. But once you open it, you'll wish you hadn't." A thud sounded from outside. Deliberate, heavy. Her eyes went wide. "They found you!" The back window shattered inward, glass raining across the floor. I dropped beside Viktor, shielding him, as a figure climbed through, The man from the train, knife in hand, eyes locked on me. Before I could move, the old woman swung something heavy, a cast-iron kettle, straight into his head. He went down hard, the knife skittering across the floorboards. "Go!" she hissed. "The back door!" We stumbled out into a world swallowed by fog. The forest was silent now, the kind of silence that presses against your ears. Somewhere behind us, voices, more than one, low and fast, speaking a language I didn't understand. I tightened my grip on Viktor's arm and the steel case. The fog thickened until even the ground at my feet was just a ghost of itself. And then, through the whiteness ahead, a light began to glow. The glow sharpened as we moved forward, breaking into two beams, headlights. But not from a car. Through the fog, the shape emerged. A bus, its paint flaking, engine rumbling low. The door was open, a shadow standing inside, one hand on the railing. "Get in," a man's voice called. I hesitated. Every cell in my body screamed that it was wrong. Behind us, movement in the fog, dark silhouettes, 5, maybe 6. The bus driver stepped down into the wet grass, his face still hidden in shadow. "You're losing time," he said, voice even, like a teacher telling a child to sit down. Viktor groaned in my arms, his head lolled, eyes fluttering. If we stayed, we'd be caught. If we went, we might be trapped. I pushed him toward the bus. The interior smelled of diesel and cold metal. Only 3 other passengers sat inside, all of them staring straight ahead, motionless. The driver shut the door without looking back. "Where are we going?" I asked. Silence. Only the sound of the engine and the rhythmic hiss of the brakes. I turned toward the windows and froze. The fog outside seemed wrong. It pressed against the glass like it was alive, shifting in slow, deliberate swirls. The forest was gone. No trees, no road, just white. And then shapes began to form in it, faces, pale and hollow-eyed, moving alongside the bus as if keeping pace. Viktor stirred again, whispering something. I leaned close. "They're not people," he breathed. I turned to him, heart slamming against my ribs. "What's in the case, Viktor?" He swallowed hard, his skin ashen. "It's not money, not documents, it's—" The bus lurched violently, throwing me into the aisle. The lights flickered, then died, plunging us into darkness. In the blackness, the driver's voice came, calm, almost gentle. "You shouldn't have brought it here." The bus shuddered to a stop. Outside, the fog pressed closer, faces clearer now, their mouths opening and closing as if trying to speak. A metallic creak came from the steel case against my hip. Something inside moved. The driver turned in his seat at last. His eyes were pitch black. "They've been waiting for you." Every passenger slowly turned their heads toward me, their movements perfectly in sync. Viktor's grip tightened painfully around my wrist. "Run," he rasped. The door hissed open, and the fog began to pour inside like liquid. I grabbed the case, pulled Viktor to his feet, and stepped toward the exit. And that's when I saw what was standing in the fog. The fog shifted, revealing a tall, thin figure standing no more than 2 meters from the bus. It was human in shape, but too still, too precise, like it was carved from the mist itself. Its face was a blur, except for one thing, a mouth stretched into an impossible smile. It raised its hand slowly, palm open toward me. The steel case in my hands vibrated, like something inside was answering the gesture. I felt my grip loosening against my will, The case wanted to go to it. Viktor clung to my arm, his voice breaking. If it takes it, there's no coming back. The passengers behind us began to stand, one by one, their faces slack, eyes empty. The driver didn't move. He just stared at me with those black eyes, waiting. I turned to Viktor. What's inside? He looked at me, truly looked, and said, "You." Before I could speak, he ripped the latches on the case. The lid flew open, and a wave of heat burst out, forcing the fog back for just a second. Inside was light, but not any light I'd ever seen. It was molten, alive, shifting with images I couldn't quite understand, flashes of my own face, my hands, my voice, but older, younger, fractured in time. It wasn't carrying money. It was carrying moments, all of mine, every memory, every version of me that ever existed. The figure in the fog stepped closer. Its smile widened, splitting its face in two, and in my mind, not through words, but through thought, it spoke. "Give it and you'll forget. Give it and you'll be free." My knees shook, my whole body wanted to surrender, to let go of everything, the pain, the mistakes, the ghosts. But Viktor's voice cut through. If you give it, you're not you anymore. The fog reached the bus steps. The air grew heavy, wet, choking. I clutched the case tighter. The light inside flickered, growing dimmer as if deciding whether to stay. The figure's hand was now inches from me, and in that moment, I threw the case past it, deep into the mist. The smile vanished. The faces in the fog screamed in unison, the sound splitting the air. The ground trembled. The bus shook violently. The mist imploded, sucking backward into nothingness. When it cleared, the figure was gone. The passengers collapsed in their seats. The driver stared ahead like nothing happened. I turned to Viktor, but his seat was empty. The steel case was gone. I looked down at my hands and froze. They weren't my hands anymore. They were smaller, paler, like they belonged to someone else entirely. The driver glanced at me in the mirror, his eyes no longer black, but tired, almost sad. He said, "You made your choice." Outside, through the window, I caught my reflection. It wasn't me, not the me I remembered, and for the first time, I realized I couldn't remember my own name. The bus engine roared, and we drove into the endless white.